Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am starting another weekly vlog where I'm going to do my best to stay off my phone and really try to break my phone addiction. Again, I've been really bad about scrolling and it has taken a mental toll on my health. So I'm going to do my best just trying to do things like read, clean, do other hobbies. Next week we have friends coming over. So I know I'm going to be doing a lot of cleaning because they're coming from out of state and they're staying with us for a few days. Yesterday I did finish reading Abigail and that was such a good book. I have a vlog of me reading most of it for a whole day. So if you want to check that out. But I had maybe 50 pages left to read and it was so well written. The last two scenes in that book, it was just so high paced. It felt like there was really climatic music in the background for me while I was reading it because I was getting so nervous about what was going to be happening. I feel like these characters were extremely real to me. I love how all of the characters were very individual. They all had their own little quirks and personality types, and it made it very easy to follow along. And I'm just a little bit sad that I don't have any more to read about them. Something about that book, I don't know. I was just so attached to them at the end. I'm so excited to read her other book, The Door. I also read, there's a little bit of an author's bio at the front of those books, and she originally was writing poetry. And I think she was banned from writing poetry and then ended up writing novels. So it made sense that her books were written and it felt like poetry to me at some points. It was very lyrical and it was just so beautifully written sometimes. I am just a little bit hungover from that book because it was just so good. But yeah, I'm probably gonna think about that book for the rest of my life. It was a great book to start August, which is Women in Translation Month. Speaking of, I did start Notes of a Crocodile by Chio Miaojin. I know I'm not pronouncing that right, I'm sorry. And this is another book for Women in Translation Month. And this, I just started it last night, so I'm not even 10 pages in. I believe we're following a student and she's attending a prestigious university. This is set in Taiwan in the 1980s, and she ends up falling in love with another, I believe it's another student, 4 years ahead of them. With the time that this is set in and the location, I think our main character is kind of struggling with her attraction towards this older student, and I believe we are also going to follow her, probably a group of friends that she will develop, and just her journey being a queer person in this setting. I don't think we ever learn what her name is. I think we just go by her nickname that people call her, or address herself. I read the first few pages of this last night, and the first entry I was really confused. As I kept reading, it seems like these are more journal entries, it feels like, and I haven't read enough to know if that's what it's gonna be like for the rest of the book. Yeah, so we just get little moments. They're very short. They're a page and a half sometimes. I am gonna sit outside for a little bit and read as much as possible, and then I might sit by the pool depending on what the weather's gonna be like, because it's very finicky of if it's gonna rain or if it's gonna not. I'm a little under 20% into Notes of a Crocodile, so I do have some initial thoughts. Going into this book, I knew there was going to be a little bit of gap in understanding for me because, again, this will be in a place I'm not familiar with, in a time that I was not, a part of. and in a community that, I'm not really super versed in. So going in, I was like, yeah, there's going to be some things that are just going to kind of go over my head. There is just like a little bit of detachment I have with the writing and sort of like, I guess, mostly with the dialogue. Whenever the character is just communicating with anyone, it feels like there is just like a gap in me being like, did I miss something? Did I miss a conversation? But I don't know if it's like a reflection on maybe their quiet like understanding of each other, but the dialogue just feels very like foreign to me. And I know that could be because of like translation or the culture aspect of it, but I just am really thrown off with the dialogue, especially with the boy she meets very early on in the book. And I don't know, I got like really thrown off by that character. So again, I think I'll have to read a little bit more to kind of get a more grip on their personalities. We get a little bit of like a stream of consciousness from our main character, and then we get like a timeline of some of events that have happened while they were in school and like the people that they were meeting. That timeline I am very interested in. I get like very sucked in, but the more stream of consciousness one feels a little bit disconnected. I don't know. So far, they reference like French movies and films. I don't know if they've referenced Hollywood films. I'm not very versed in films or any like foreign films that much because I'm just not a big movie person. I think there is just like a little bit of detachment from me because I just don't know and I'm not familiar. So that is one of the things that kind of give me pause a little bit. But the chapters are very short. They average between like 2 pages to 4 so far. And that very quick timeline does make it very interesting to me. Like it keeps me entertained. However, I just get a little caught up in the references and the dialogue with the characters. Yeah, so those are some of my initial thoughts. So far, it's very sad. Like it's very emotionally depressing. I knew part of like it was going to be like that because being a queer person, especially when you are at a young age and like becoming your own individual, it is hard because you're trying to find support and you don't really know where to begin because you just don't really know who to trust. I'm definitely going to have to keep going and seeing where if things start to make a little bit more sense to me, but for right now there is just like a little bit more detachment, foreignness for me, which I guess like echoes the main character's troubles with sort of fitting in society and like fitting in the molds that society that she is in is trying to enforce upon her. So I don't know. But I'm gonna keep reading and I'll let you know how it goes from here. I finished reading Notes of a Crocodile earlier today before we went to dinner. This took me a little bit longer than I thought just because it was such a short book and parts of it felt very easy and digestible to read, but I did have just a little bit of a hard time. My overall final thoughts of it are going to be like parts of it I really liked, parts of it I felt very disconnected from. And part of that reason is in general, because this is again, I think this is something I mentioned before. This is in a time, place, and experience that I'm unfamiliar with. So there is going to be a little bit of a disconnect in that way. There's just like no going around it. Like there's always going to be just a little bit of cultural understanding that I'm not going to be able to latch onto. Going into this book, I didn't realize that it was going to be very like angsty, and there's like a lot of self-hatred in this book. And I knew because this was a queer story in the 80s in Taiwan that there was going to be a lot of uncomfortable like feelings, being unfamiliar in your own skin, like not knowing exactly how to approach the world in a place that feels unwelcoming to you. Although I knew that, I felt like the entire book, other than just like the little moment, most of the book was just a lot of angst, a lot of manipulation, toxicity, self hatred, and like thoughts of being undeserving of love. And sometimes, like books like that feel very like relatable. But to me, it it was just like the mix of the characters and sort of I guess like the choppiness of the dialogue the characters were having with each other just didn't really work for me. I do really appreciate what feels very real in terms of describing feelings of like being self-destructive due to partly being like ashamed of who you are. And I felt like those feelings and those thoughts were very real. They were very like unfiltered things that are like relatable in that way, unfortunately, right? And when you have those feelings, those then reflect actions that you take, whether it's, being toxic or pushing people away and feeling like you just are undeserving of having really great people in your life or finding great love. So that I feel like was very relatable and it was very true. And then I also really loved the friendship that our main character was having with other people. Although I wasn't 100% loving some of the people that she was befriending, the kind of breath of relief that she had for finding people that can understand her partly and she can then rely on or depend on to be very vulnerable and speak about things, feelings that she has never been able to do before has was so endearing, and it was just like a lot of growth. I think it was important for our main character to know that a lot of your identity and who you are becoming into this world, it doesn't always need to be like prescriptive or like follow a mold. Yeah, so like there are like moments like that where it felt very like relatable that she can depend on people, that she was giving herself more grace. And then so some of the issues I had with the book was, I don't know, some of the dialogue with the characters felt very weird. Like when they were talking to each other, it didn't feel like they were talking to each other, more so they were just talking out loud. I don't know if that makes sense. Like they were just like talking at each other. And so whenever one character would say something, the other character would respond, but they would not really be responding to them. They're just being saying something else. Yeah, I don't know how exactly to else to explain that, but it felt like they weren't having a conversation. They were just speaking and just talking. It got choppy for me when I was reading some of that. And almost I didn't know who exactly was talking. That was also the weird thing is, I don't know, like it almost felt like the characters were in and of themselves like meshing together, like they were melding. Like it felt a little bit like like they were all almost like the same person sometimes. So, I don't know, there was just like a little bit of difficulty for me to grasp some of the dialogue and exactly what they were trying to say. And not only that, there was just a lot of like telling. Like there was no showing of anything. It was just like a lot of telling us like this thing happened. Like we never witnessed anything really happening. We're just like told these things, which, sometimes is fine, but the whole book was basically just not showing and only telling. And again, I can see I can see that being part of like the experimental writing that the author was doing. I don't know. Overall, it didn't work for me personally. I wasn't really into the writing. The whole book there was no plot. It was all just character driven, which, I'm never upset about when there's no plot, but when the mixture of the choppy dialogue and sort of the experimental writing, it really just didn't work well for me. So, I'm not saying it's a bad book. I wasn't really feeling any sort of attachment towards any of the characters. Even the main character like didn't really feel like a character. The main character just felt like this like entity. Those are going to be my final thoughts on Notes of a Crocodile. If this feels like something that you would enjoy, you should definitely pick it up. I don't know what I want to read next because that book was like pretty sad, and it was very depressing to read constantly about how someone just kind of hated themselves so much. So I don't know what I want to read next. I'm going to talk to you guys while I'm working on this. This is one of those book nooks. I think it's like a little bookshop-ish. I've had this, I want to say, for like almost 2 years. I started it and then I never finished it. And as we were cleaning today, I decided, you know what, I'm going to finish this because it takes up a lot of room on one of my desks. So it needs to be done. So I've been working on this all day, basically. I've been watching YouTube while working on this. And I know I should be like cleaning and doing things because all of our friends are coming over in the next few days. But, like we did cleaning. We have tomorrow. I want to try to finish this tonight, and then we have all day tomorrow, and then basically all day Thursday to clean. And so we've been cleaning. On another note, my husband found NFC chips, and I told him I wanted to get a brick, but I don't want to pay that money per se. And so he looked it up online how to make one with the NFC chips. And so he got that figured out. I've been bricked up for 8 hours so far, partially because I've been working on this and we've been like cleaning and cooking and eating. And so it's been nice having the ability to lock myself out of social media. So he did 2 NFC chips. So I have one that only unlocks and one that locks it. So the unlock one, I put it upstairs in his studio because I really hate going upstairs. And to lock it, I have it just like in my studio down here. So we'll see if I unlock it. I don't think I will tonight because I want to get this finished. I did start reading Where the Dark Stands Still. Ooh, what's the author's name? A.B. I don't know. I have it over there. It's like A.B. Poranak, I think. Let me go get it, actually. Where the Dark Stands Still, A.B. Poranak. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her last name right. I'm not even very far. I'm just on chapter 2. So I don't even know what this one is about. But so far, all I know is the main character has some type of magic where she can see, I guess, like spirits. And so then that is disturbing her family in a way. And no one really knew that she had these powers. But now I think people in her village or her town are starting to suspect that something is amiss with her, that she has some type of powers, and it seems like, I guess, dangerous to them. So all I know right now is she is going into the woods, into, I think, like a very dangerous part of the woods to find some type of fern that only grows, under certain conditions at a certain time. I think that fern will grant her a wish of some sort, but you have to be like, of course, you have to be like very specific about what you want to wish for. I think it's like by wishing. I'm not sure. She's going to try to find that fern and wish for her powers to be gone. So like that is all I know, 10 pages in. But I'm also reading The White Book by Han Kang. And again, that one is like poetry and it's like 1 page or 1 or 3 pages per little poem, anecdote. And so it's very heartbreaking reading some of them. So I'm kind of like reading them. I'm reading them and like taking my time and not like reading it in one go, because it is a very short book. But that's the book I'm reading for Women in Translation Month, one of those. After finishing Notes of a Crocodile, I felt like I needed a little bit of a break. So I thought maybe reading like a fantasy book, like a standalone fantasy book, might be a good way to break up the different genres that I'm reading right now. But yeah, I don't know, that's kind of weird to use like a fantasy book to, I wouldn't say like a palate cleanser, but kind of like maybe it's not weird, just like switching up your genres. So yeah, I'm gonna work on this book nook thing, and then it's 8:30 right now. So, and then probably read a little bit and then go to bed. So this is going to be a very short vlog. I'm going to go ahead and end it out here because I have friends coming. We got to go pick them up at the airport, and I just don't really have, any other time to record. But I thought I would give you a final update of what I'm reading. So I mentioned this earlier. I did start Where the Dark Stands Still. I'm only on page 39. It's kind of setting up like a typical fantasy romance, I would say, where she is trying to get some type of wish or something, and like the main character is some kind of like god or like ancient figure that will then grant that wish if they like stay with them for like a year, like work for them for like a year or something. So don't really have any thoughts. I also did start The White Book by Han Kang, and I'm on page 21, and so far I love the writing. The writing is absolutely beautiful. I'm glad I started reading her books with this, I guess. So her writing is just so simple, but also very like strong and very devastating, I would say. I'm taking it little by little with this book because, again, it does deal with grief, and it is very like gut-wrenching and very like raw. So yeah, those are the two books that I have started. I don't think I'll get that much reading done this week, but I'm going to try my best. But yeah, this is going to be really short and sweet vlog. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I didn't do much in it. I really didn't record at all, so. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out.